Lately, I've been pretty busy writing, and despite my self-proclaimed status as a fancy author, I've actually never published anything, or even finished a full book, for that matter. But I'd like to, so I've been writing. And in the process of writing, I've been learning. I've always described myself as a storyteller. Even as a snot-nosed kid, in between mad sessions of booger picking, I was always writing my own short stories. And as a teenager, my views kind of shifted towards cinematography, but the storytelling aspect was always there. And for most of my life, I worked in video, worked on projects from commercials to short films, and even branched into amateur cartoons. All of that requires a skill of storytelling. And not to brag, but I've won several awards throughout my life that tell me I am a good storyteller. But what I've learned in the process of writing this book is that storytelling and writing are not the same skill, but you do need both to write a good book. Now, I don't say this to worry you, because the good news is, just like any other craft, you can learn this as long as you're consistent and you're honest with yourself and open to growth.
Man, that sucks!
I can't say this for everyone, but some of my biggest hurdles in writing this book are my prose and descriptive writing. It's getting better. Every draft, I'm working those muscles in my brain to communicate thoughts to a page, and I'm getting more confident in my work. Fun fact, writing actually uses multiple parts of your brain, not just one. I'm getting better at identifying my simple sentences and turning them into a more detailed narrative that not only explains what the hell I'm trying to say, but sounds better to the person reading it. Though I still think I fall short because I'm simply not a good writer yet. But I do think I'll get there. My philosophy of writing prose, I think, mimics my philosophy of cinematography and video editing, skills that I'm already well versed in. And I don't think this philosophy is exclusive to my personal line of thought, but I do think it's the only approach that gives good results. So what is my philosophy? Well, I approach all aspects of video as if they all tell their own story. You write a story in the form of a script in pre-production, so you have words on a page that tell the narrative you want to tell. And during production, lights, camera, action, you have to successfully show that story. So what does that mean? Well, let's say a particular scene has tension between the antagonist and the protagonist, or just two people in general. How do we show that? Number one, lighting can help tell that story. Maybe we focus on more dramatic, sharper shadows, or maybe even show a flickering practical light in the background, something that makes the viewer subconsciously feel something is off with the scene. Number two, the angles in which you shoot the scene. So maybe there's a close-up of a face that's just a little too close, and that makes the viewer feel uneasy at what they're watching. And number three, the obvious, the actors and how they portray the characters in the scene. What facial expression are they making? What tone is their voice? What are their hands doing? I heard somewhere early in my career that you should be able to turn off the sound of a film and still have a sense of what's happening just by looking at it. That can only happen if everything can stand alone as its own story. The same applies to audio and cutting and post-production. What music is playing? Is any music playing at all? How fast are the cuts between shots? Every single aspect should be done with intention, and every single aspect should tell its own story. And that's kind of how I view prose in a book. The book itself has a story, but the way you tell the story, the punctuation, and specific words you use all matter. And it's absolutely challenging, more challenging than I thought it would be. So, against my better judgment, I'm going to share a little bit of my work with you to better explain this example. In this part of the book, I need the reader to understand one thing. Jasper had a willy scary dream. Now, I can say Jasper had a nightmare, and you'd probably get it. But that isn't a very interesting thing to read, and I also want to show that this isn't a dream the character can brush off. This dream carries weight. In fact, this dream or nightmare has been haunting him for years, and is the catalyst for this section of the story. So here are my three drafts that describe the same situation. Draft 1. Jasper Cole jolted awake, his heart pounding against his chest. The memories of the nightmare clung to him like the wet sheets tangled around his legs. Okay, so what's wrong with this? Well, for one, it's a bit cliche. There's always a heart pounding in someone's chest. But the wording doesn't quite send the message I want to give either, most notably the wet sheets. I wanted to show that Jasper was sweating, but the way I describe it can also read as the character peeing the bed because he was so scared of the nightmare. That's fine, but not exactly what I want for this character, so I had to change it. Draft 2. Jasper Cole jolted awake, his heart pounding against his chest. The nightmare clung to the man like his bed sheets that once gave him comfort, now twisted and suffocating. This is a bit better. I went ahead and got rid of the wet bed sheets altogether because you don't really need to know Jasper sweating to be able to tell that this was a doozy of a nightmare. But now it's a bit too wordy. It tells the reader what I want them to know, but it feels a bit awkward and long to read, so I had to change it again. And that's where I got draft 3, which is where it currently sits. Jasper jolted awake. His heart raced as he fought the bedsheets that clung to him like the nightmare, twisted and suffocating. I think this version is the best so far. It's direct and tells the reader what I want them to know without going into a word salad. But honestly, tell me what you think, because I'm living in a bubble. I haven't got much feedback on this book aside from my wife, mostly because I'm nervous of being so vulnerable. And that's another hurdle to overcome, being okay with people telling you that your work sucks. This one's actually tough because I thought I'd be okay with creative criticism by now, seeing as to how I've worked in the creative field for so long. But I think I've always been able to lean on comedy or say something like, well, that's not my vision, it's theirs, and use that as a crutch against something if somebody doesn't like it. But this book is 100% me, and it's me trying to tell a serious story. That's really terrifying. I think this video is me taking the first step and putting myself out there and getting comfortable with people knowing about this cool thing I'm working on and something I'm very proud to be working on. And who knows, maybe one day people will even get to read it. There is one last hurdle that I'm going to go ahead and mention, and that's trying to write a book with ADHD. Writing a book with ADHD at times can be the easiest thing in the world and the absolute hardest thing in the world. Hyperfixations jump around, burnout happens fast if you don't progress quickly enough, and rewriting things is tough, especially if you've grown attached to this one sentence that you love so much but can't come to terms that it doesn't work for the story. But for this book, I think I found a workaround, and it's probably one of the main reasons I would never be able to sell this book even if I wanted to. This is not one story with one main character. This is 20 different stories with one big story happening quietly in the background. That character, Jasper Cole, he's in a small section of the book, but that small section is his whole story, and it's a powerful story at that. I think me being able to jump to different stories and work on them keeps the book fresh for me. It makes it to where I don't get bored so easily. One long book that's 80% done? Nah, I want to work on the next one. One long story with 20 different short stories that can help support the overall narrative? Hell yeah. I can jump in between those stories and work on them all day. And I do. I jump from a Western to a pirate story to a cyberpunk themed story, but I think I'm somehow making it work, and again, I'm pretty proud of it. I don't think I'll ever say that it's finished, but I will have a fully fleshed out story at the end that can sit on my bookshelf. And who knows, maybe one day I'll even post the whole thing online for people to check out. But until then, this is a great way for me to learn how to write a story on paper. So one day I can feel confident enough and maybe even publish something. If you're writing a book or a short story or anything and you don't feel super confident in your ability, that's okay. I don't think many of us do, but I do know that we can get there. As long as we stick with it, we're consistent, and we're honest with ourselves. No, we likely won't have a hit on the first go, or even something half-assed good, but we will have experience for the next one, and even more experience for the next one after that. Keep writing, my friends, and I will too. Thanks for watching. Later.